Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. Hope you are doing well so far. And I think it's about time I unveiled my other off-season roadmap. A handful of days ago, I did off-season roadmap number one, which was the Go for the Super Bowl in 2023 map. In it, I described what I think the team should do, or at least a general idea of what they should do if they're going to make 2023 the Super Bowl or bust season. Well, that's not the only way they can go. It is a viable path, and it wouldn't shock me if they looked that way, or at least tried to look that way. But there's another path. There's the hit the brakes, don't go crazy, save your money. 2024 is the year. Let's use 2023 as a springboard for great success in 2024. Now, we're not tanking. You don't tank. We're not trying to lose games. We're not trying to go for the draft. We're not doing any of that. But we're not going to overextend ourselves to try to get some 13, 14 win team. We're not going to do a whole bunch of crazy contracts to make it so that we can fit everybody in and build a super team. No, this is let's chill out. 2023 is not the year where it makes sense for us to go for a Super Bowl, so let's just take it easy. Let's roll some cap space over to 2024. Let's get a bunch of rookies in here in the draft, and then we can decide whether or not 2024 makes sense. Maybe we draft a quarterback high in the draft. Maybe we get Stroud or Levis or Anthony Richardson or whoever. You're not going to necessarily want to play them that much that first year. Especially I would say Stroud and Richardson because they're so young. So you're not going to build a Super Bowl team and then say, okay, rookie, go out there as a 21-year-old and go win the Super Bowl. No. You're going to take your time. You're going to get a proof of concept before you take the plunge. And this roadmap is kind of for that. This roadmap is, we're not going to tank, but we're going to accept that this year is not the year where the team is going to go win a Super Bowl unless 20 different crazy fluky things happen. So with that being said, I don't dislike this path any more or less than I did the other path. I think both are viable, but what I would say is this. Pick a path. Pick a path. Walk that path. So let's run through my roadmap for this path. So first of all, we are sitting on about $23.6 million in cap space according to Spotrac after you factor in the Belor contract. So our cap space has already been reduced significantly because of the Haynes deal, the Belor deal, and I guess the Myers deal, even though that was about a month ago. So let's start with our cuts. Let's start with some of the players we're going to be moving on from. And I've expanded the list a little bit. We're still cutting Gabe Jackson, still cutting Al Woods, still cutting Brian Monet for the same reasons. Regardless of the path, I don't think it makes very much sense to keep any of these guys. But I am now going to cut Quentin Jefferson and Shelby Harris. I just don't think it makes sense to keep either of these guys if you're going to treat 2023 as a stepping stone year. Quentin Jefferson, he's okay. He can play a handful of snaps a game adequately. But at the end of the day, he doesn't offer anything long-term. He doesn't offer anything enticing. Just give the snaps to somebody else with upside, with potential, maybe with some superstar potential. Give it to a rookie, anybody else, just not somebody who's already realized his potential. So I'm cutting Q-Jeff, and I'm cutting Shelby Harris, kind of the same reason. I think Shelby Harris is a pretty good player, but I don't want to have him on a $12 million cap hit in 2023, and I don't want to extend him if 2023 is not a year where I'm going for it, because then you're going to deal with a bloated cap hit in future years when you're actually trying to go for it, and that's the exact opposite of what you want. We can save $9 million cutting Shelby Harris. I'm doing that. Excuse me. And on top of that, I am trading Noah Fant to whoever wants to give up a fourth-round pick for him. We do not pay Noah Fant any money this year if he's traded. So that will save about $6.9 million. Now, the fourth-round pick that you get for Noah Fant is going to cost you about 800, 850, 900,000. So therefore, it wipes out a little bit of the salary cap gains, but you're still talking about $7 million savings. Noah Fant is in the last year of his deal. I don't see any particular interest in keeping him beyond this year. So if you're keeping him around just to be a guy to hold the fort down for one stepping stone year, and you're going to let him go when you actually go for it, you might as well let him go now and get some draft capital for it. So I'm trading Noah Fant for a fourth, and I'm doing the tag and trade of Geno Smith again. Basically the same scenario I laid out in my mock draft. Second round pick plus third round pick. Those two picks combined will generate a cap hit of about $2.65 million in 2023. So that gets us about $30 million extra freed up. New cap space is about $53.5 million. So that gives us enough to spend, and we won't have to spend as much because this is a different scenario. Or at least the way in which we spend money is going to be a little bit different. For instance, I'm not extending Hugh Jeff or Shelby Harris because there's no point to doing it. I am extending Uchenna Nwosu in this scenario because he's really good and he's young. That's a guy who makes sense to extend regardless of your path. So Nwosu I am extending. I'm getting this cap hit down by about 4 3/4. You could front load the contract a little bit, make that first year cap hit higher to make future cap hits lower. But remember, unused cap rolls over, so you don't really have to do that. And this gets our cap space up to $58.2 million. $58.2 million. And then we start going into the bigger expenditures, starting with the rookie pool. The rookie pool is going to be pretty big because we have a lot of picks. Obviously, if we trade up or trade down, the amount of the rookie pool changes potentially significantly. But it's the same as it was as of right now, plus the hypothetical picks I got for Fant and Geno. So the rookie pool is going to be $16.4 million, plus the $2.65 million for the Geno picks, and another like $850,000 for the Noah Fant pick. So you're approaching $20 million in your rookie pool. It's all accounted for here. So the rookie pool alone takes you down to about 41.8. 41.8 million at this point. Now we start dealing with our in-house free agents. I did not change anything for the restricted guys. I just didn't. I didn't see any reason to. I think the same rules apply to these guys. They're all relatively young. They all bring something intriguing to the table. I think that just because you're not going for it doesn't mean that you don't try to bring them back. These guys have potential beyond what we've seen from them so far, with the possible exception of Ryan Neal. And Ryan Neal has played so well last year, it's not a big deal. So I'm still bringing back Godwin, Igwebuike, Radigan, Miles Adams on their EFRA super cheap one-year deals. I'm doing a right of first refusal on Mike Jackson and Tanner Muse, $2.63 million each. And Ryan Neal gets the second round tender, $4.31 million. So I don't feel like it makes sense on any scenario to let these guys go. They're going to be cheap. They're young. And by the way, the RFAs, if somebody wants them and gives you a pick, then awesome. Okay, so this takes our cap space down to about $29.4 million. Still a pretty good amount. But now we have to deal with our outgoing free agents. Fortunately, my list of outgoing free agents that I want to go get is it's low. Not a heck of a lot going on here. I got Drew Lock. Maybe it's a one-year deal, maybe it's a two-year deal, but the first year cap hit I said $5 million, could be a little bit more. But you're bringing back Drew Lock to be your bridge quarterback, and if he plays really well, then hooray, you have a really nice problem on your hands next year when you're deciding, do we keep Drew Lock, do we trade him, do we play our rookie, do we have a rookie? So Drew Lock, we're bringing him back to start that first year at the very least. He's going to at least get an opportunity. I say $5 million, especially if you give him a multi-year deal. That should be perfectly doable. I'm bringing back Rashad Penny, mostly just because you don't have to bring back Rashad Penny, but he's going to be cheap. I say 2 million, could be 3, could be. I would hope you do like 2 years, and then maybe you do a couple of void years for like a couple $100,000 each year, if that's what it takes. But you could just say, okay, 1 year, 3 million all at once. However you want to do it. There's not going to be a big demand for Rashad Penny, so I'm not really sweating it. It should be relatively reasonable. I don't think it's going to be vet min, but it's not going to be terribly far away from it. And then I'm bringing back Carson Tinker, but it could easily be Tyler Ott. We need a long snapper. It's going to be Tinker or Ott, whichever one. Doesn't really matter to me that much, but we need one of those. That's it. The other free agents we have who are outgoing, some of them don't fit. Some of them just aren't that good. Some of them are old. It doesn't make sense to bring those guys back if you're not going to go for it. Like, I think that there was an argument to make for bringing back Cody Barton if you were going to go for it. But if you're not going for it, if you're going to just kind of sit back and see what's up in 2023, then I don't think you bring back guys like Barton. I don't think it makes any sense to bring back guys like Blythe. Well, Blythe kind of either way. Goodwin, because of his age, I don't think it makes sense to bring him back. Get somebody younger, somebody with more upside, somebody who doesn't have the downside of a Goodwin. So, yeah, really short list of returning free agents for me. I don't really see any point in bringing back most of the guys. Honestly, Rashad Penny's kind of on the fence, right? You bring him back on a 1-year deal, unless he plays really badly, there's no way he's going to be back the next year, right? Because if he plays well, he's going to command a significant, or no, I don't want to say significant, but a meaningful contract you're not going to want to give him. And if you bring him back and he plays bad, then he doesn't help you because he played bad. But I think bringing him back is fine. If it's not Rashad Penny, it's going to be somebody else who costs about the same amount of money, by the way. So, whatever. So, our cap space at this point is 21.24 million. So, 21 and a quarter. And now we start releasing the bottom of the roster guys. These are the guys who might fall through to the practice squad. These are the guys who are just around for training camp. These are basically a bunch of guys who are going to get their jobs taken by rookies and some of the re-signed guys. These are just guys you have hanging around because you need the roster spot filled temporarily. Same guys as before: Weddington, Steele, Onujiogu, McKenzie, Hewitt, Island, Winston, Mabry, Vi Jones, Cade Johnson, Chris Garrett, Darwin Thompson, Isaiah Dunn, Joey Hunt. A lot of these guys will end up making our practice squad, so they're going to stick around, but they're not going to be making their full base salary. Like, I like Cade Johnson, but I don't like him for $900,000. I like Darwin Thompson, but not for $950,000. It doesn't make sense. So, after you release all these guys, that creates cap space of 33 million, just over 33 million. And then you bring back a bunch of them on the practice squad. That costs you about 4.3 million. So their much reduced practice squad salaries become a way to create significant cap space right after. Basically, this happens after the draft and before the season starts. A lot of these guys will be on the roster maybe for the preseason, and they'll be the guys who are the first to go when cuts happen. So that gets you to a cap space of 28.75 million. So pretty significant. And all we really have left is the open free agency period. Now, let me run through a couple things here. I think there are a couple different ways you can do this that work. I've outlined one, but I want to stress here, I think it is perfectly defensible to just say, don't do much of anything. Fill out the roster with cheap guys on 1-year deals, get them out of here after the year, and keep your options as flexible as possible for 2024. Don't overextend yourself. Let a bunch of cap space roll over. Basically, don't really do much of anything in free agency. Just chill, okay? Like, I think if we do that, that's understandable. That makes some sense. We're going to have a lot of rookies coming in, by the way, too. We're going to need to give them playing time. I think doing the Deron Payne trade that I suggested several days ago is still okay. My problem is Payne is going to cost so much money. It's going to force your franchise into a long-term marriage that they may not feel comfortable doing if they're not going for it. What I mean by that is you're going to sign him to a contract that you can't get out of for at least a few years, which means you're just stuck to it. If it doesn't work out, too bad. He's your guy. It's like Denver with Russell right now. It's like they want to get out of it very badly, obviously, but it's not an option. It's not a consideration yet. So you give Daron Payne his $100 million or whatever, and you're just stuck. And that's not a great place to be when you're having a stepping stone year and you don't yet know if the proof of concept is going to work. What if you draft CJ Stroud, let Locke play the first 10 games and Locke plays bad, and then you let CJ Stroud play the next 7 games and he plays terrible? Then you might be thinking, okay, maybe we don't really have a blueprint to go for it in 2024. But we're stuck to Daron Payne and he's making a ridiculous amount of money. And even if it does work, like let's say you bring in a guy like Daron Payne and then you go, okay, we're going to see what's up in 2023, and 2023 works where QBX looks good. And then you go into 2024 thinking, okay, we're going to go for it, and Daron Payne's cap number explodes. And it's like, oh, well, this is going to be a lot harder now. I want the window to coincide with the player's monster cap hits if you're going to have monster cap hits. So I'm not in love with the idea of getting Daron Payne if we're not going for it. So here's what I would do in the case of not going for it. I would bring in 2 defensive linemen who are good, who are going to cost some money, but it's not going to be on the Daron Payne level where you have to backload it and it blows up like crazy and you're stuck to it forever. No, I'm bringing in 2 guys who have a chance to be really, really good for you, but aren't going to completely cripple you by themselves. I have Draymond Jones of the Denver Broncos. You'd probably have to give him like 13, 14 million a year, but the first year cap hit would be about 10 million in my estimation. And then you bring in Zach Allen from the Cardinals. Probably have to give him like 7, maybe 8 million a year, but first year cap hit, I say 5. You could make those cap hits a little bit bigger, front load the contracts a little bit more than usual, just to make sure that they have reasonable cap hits for the years you are going for it. But I like Draymond Jones and Zach Allen a lot. Really good defensive linemen. You can bring them in, and you don't cripple yourself. If it doesn't work out, if they're not playing well, it's not completely cost prohibitive to just let them go. They're not going to command the 5-year, $100 million deal that Daron Payne might. These are second-tier guys. Zach Allen's probably a third-tier guy at this rate. So that's how I would start my offseason. Then I'm bringing in Devin Bush. Devin Bush is... We need linebackers, and Devin Bush is young, and he's going to be cheap because things did not work out well in Pittsburgh. First year cap hit, I said $3 million. I don't know if Devin Bush would take a multi-year deal, but he's very young. He's got a lot of talent. It just didn't work in Pittsburgh. If it doesn't work out here, then whatever. Not a big investment, not a big problem. But while we are taking a year as a stepping stone towards hopefully being a Super Bowl contender next year, let's see what's up. We're probably going to have some rookies at middle linebacker. We're going to have guys like Tanner Muse get their chance. Jordan Brooks is going to come back and he'll get, I guess you could call it kind of his last chance to prove that he's worth anything. May as well have Devin Bush kicking around in there as well. And we just try to find a couple guys who are good. And I would bring in Zach Pascal. I just like him. He's a good blocker at the minimum. He didn't get a lot of opportunities in Philly, but I think he's a pretty good player. His lack of production means he will probably end up taking around the vet min. So he would cost about what Goodwin costs, except he's much younger. So if things go well with him, you can bring him back next year and expect him to maybe even get a little bit better as time goes by. When I'm trying to spend in free agency in a year like this, I'm trying to be very focused on youth. I want young players, guys who can get better, guys who are going to hit their prime, guys who are not, you're not paying for past performance. All right, so that is my offseason scenario 2. Final cap space is about $9.5 million, which is more than the other scenario, which is cool. You can roll that over. Roll it over into 2024. Have more money to spend in 2024 when you hopefully get to go for it. You could even make that cap space a little bit more. You could probably do some stuff to make it a little more, even a little bit more rollover. You could maybe find ways to pinch pennies on the practice squad. Some teams do that. You could maybe not bring back Rashad Penny and just say we'll get some fourth round rookie. There are things you can do. But yeah, this would be my alternate path. Path number 2. And I want to say it again. I got no problem with this path. I think this path would be great. I think that you could even alter the path a little bit to say don't do much of anything in free agency. Sign a bunch of, 4th tier, 5th tier guys and just run out the clock until 2024 and then go for it. And then you're rolling over like 20 million plus into 2024. That's cool too. But that's what I see as a really appealing path personally. This is a path that I really like. Let me know what you guys think down below. I will see you guys later. Go Hawks, and yeah, that's the blueprint.